All right, so are you ready to dive deep into something really interesting?
Oh, yeah. Always up for a good deep dive.
This time we're taking a look at something you sent us, a mini personality test from the Spiritual Seek, asking.
Are you politically correct?
Yes, exactly. And I think this is going to be fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just the term political correctness itself
Oh, I know, right?
is kind of loaded these days.
It really is.
Yeah.
Some people see it as just like, basic respect and inclusivity.
Right.
But others see it as like,
Censorship gone wild.
exactly. So this test kind of tries to dig into our like hidden biases and attitudes about all of that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
The first statement says, excessive candor can become harmful.
That's a good one right off the bat.
Yeah, I know, right?
It makes you think about like the balance between being honest
Yeah,
and being diplomatic.
totally. Because is it always best to just like, speak your mind no matter what?
Right.
Or are there times when you kind of have to soften the blow a little?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, have you ever been in that situation where like a friend asks for your honest opinion on
Oh,
something
God, all the time.
and you're like caught between telling the truth and like,
Not crushing their soul.
yes, exactly.
That's a tough one.
It is. So how do you approach that? Like, can you be both honest and kind at the same time?
I think you can. I think it really comes down to like your intention. If you're just trying to be mean, then obviously, even if what you're saying is true, it's going to come across wrong.
Right.
But if you're coming from a place of like actually caring about the person
Right.
and wanting to help them, then even a difficult conversation can be productive.
That's a good point. It's not just what you say, but how you say it right.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to the next statement. This one says, I admire the way my leading politicians speak.
Ooh, now this is getting juicy.
I know, right? I kind of chuckled when I read that one because I was just picturing like,
Those classic political speeches,
Yeah.
all like soaring rhetoric and vague promises.
but no real substance.
Exactly. It's all style over substance.
Yeah. So it makes you wonder, are we as voters just like completely swayed by a good speaker,
I mean,
even if their words are kind of meaningless?
right. Do we prioritize charisma over like actual policies or, a track record of getting things done?
It's a good question to ask ourselves for sure.
It is.
All right, let's move on to the next statement. This one says, an innocent lie is better than an offensive truth.
Oh, boy. This one's going to be interesting.
I know, right? This one really gets to the heart of the whole political correctness debate.
For sure.
Is it ever okay to lie, even if it's a little white lie to spare someone's feelings?
Right.
Or should we always be striving for like complete and total honesty, even if it risks offending someone?
It's a tough one.
It is. I mean, on the one hand, I can see how a little white lie can sometimes smooth over a social situation
Yeah,
and prevent unnecessary drama.
for sure.
But on the other hand, if we're constantly shielding people from the truth,
Right.
are we really doing them any favors?
It's like, are we preventing them from facing reality and actually growing as people?
Exactly. And it makes you think about, like, what even is truth?
Oh, yeah.
Is there such a thing as objective truth, or is it always subjective?
Right.
And if it is subjective, then who gets to decide what's offensive and what's not?
Whoa. We're getting philosophical now.
I know, right?
This is deep.
It is. This is heavy stuff.
Yeah, but that's what a good personality test should do, right? Make you think.
It should absolutely. Okay, let's keep this train rolling.
Okay.
The next statement says, minorities should always be respected and protected.
On the surface, that seems pretty straightforward, right?
Right, like who's going to disagree with that?
Exactly. But I think it's worth digging a little deeper.
I agree, because first of all, what do we even mean by minorities?
Right. Like, that's a pretty broad term.
It is. It covers a lot of different groups with a lot of different experiences.
Totally.
And then what does it even mean to respect and protect them? Are we talking about just like basic human rights?
Yeah.
Or are we talking about like affirmative action or other policies that aim to level the playing field?
Right. And how do we balance respecting individual autonomy with the need to protect vulnerable groups from discrimination?
Ooh, that is the million-dollar question.
It is. It's a tough one.
This conversation is making me realize that political correctness is way more complicated than I thought.
It really is. It's not just about like avoiding offensive language.
Right.
It's about how we think about power dynamics,
Yes.
social justice, the very fabric of our society.
It's deep stuff.
It is.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and tackle the rest of these statements and see what the Spiritual Seek has to say about them.
Sounds good. I'm ready for more.
Me too?
This is fascinating.
I know, right?
I love a good deep dive.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back. All right, so we're back and ready to tackle the rest of these statements from the Spiritual Seeks personality test.
Yeah, let's dive back in.
Okay, so the next statement says, I try to adapt to the customs and ideas of the place where I am.
Interesting one.
I know, right? Makes me think about, like, traveling to different countries.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like those travel shows where people try to immerse themselves in different cultures.
Exactly, and, like, blend in with the locals.
It brings up that whole idea of cultural relativism, like
Right.
the idea that there isn't just one right way to do things.
Yeah, and that what's considered normal or polite can vary widely from place to place.
Exactly. So it makes you wonder, is it always a good thing to adapt and conform like that?
Yeah. Like, is there a risk of losing your own identity or compromising your values?
That's a tough one.
It is. It's like that classic dilemma, right?
Yeah.
Should you be true to yourself, even if it means standing out or maybe offending someone?
Right. Or should you prioritize fitting in and keeping the peace, even if it means kind of hiding who you really are?
It's a tough balance.
It is. I think it probably depends on the situation, right?
Yeah, like, if you're a guest in someone else's country, it's probably a good idea to be respectful of their customs and traditions.
Right. But at the same time, there might be times when you feel like you have to stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah, even if it means going against the grain.
Exactly. And I think it's important to be aware of your own motivations. Like, are you adapting out of genuine respect for the other culture?
Yeah.
Or are you just trying to avoid conflict or judgment?
That's a good point. It's all about self-awareness, right?
Absolutely.
Understanding why we do the things we do.
And being mindful of the impact our actions have on others.
Exactly. Okay, ready for the last statement.
Hit me with it.
All right, here it is. When one's opinion goes against the tide, it is better not to express it.
Whoa, that's a loaded one.
I know, right? And it feels especially relevant these days.
Oh, yeah, for sure, with everything going on in the world.
It's like everyone's got an opinion and they're not afraid to share it.
Right, and sometimes it feels like there's a lot of pressure to conform.
Yeah, like to just go along with the majority, even if you disagree.
Especially on social media.
Oh my God, yes.
Like one wrong opinion and you can get canceled.
It's true. This statement really makes me think about self-censorship.
Yeah, that little voice inside that tells you to just keep your mouth shut.
Even when you know you have something important to say.
It's a problem because if we're all constantly silencing ourselves,
Right.
we're never going to have any real dialogue.
Exactly. And that's how you end up with echo chambers.
Where everyone just agrees with each other and no one's challenging the status quo.
And that's not good for anyone. We need diverse viewpoints.
You do.
And we need to be able to have open and honest conversations, even when they're difficult.
Absolutely. This statement is a good reminder that it's okay to disagree.
Yeah.
It's okay to challenge the status quo, and it's okay to speak truth to power even when it's uncomfortable.
Well said. So there you have it. 6 seemingly simple statements that have sparked a surprisingly deep and nuanced conversation.
Yeah, who knew a personality test could be so thought-provoking?
Right. And that's the beauty of a well-designed test like this.
It's not about giving you a definitive answer. It's about making you think critically and examine your own beliefs.
It's like holding up a mirror to your own mind.
Exactly, and asking yourself, who am I?
And how do I navigate this crazy complex world?
And now I think it's time to shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and look at how the spiritual seek interprets the answers to these statements.
Yeah, because they don't just label you as politically correct or not.
Right. They actually dive into the motivations and fears behind your choices.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's hear what they have to say. All right, so we went through all 6 of those statements from the Spiritual Seeks personality test.
We did, yeah.
And now I'm really curious to see how they, like, interpret the answers.
Me too. Like, what do our choices actually say about us?
Exactly. Like, what are the motivations and fears behind those choices?
Right.
So how do they break it down?
Well, they have like a scoring system,
Okay.
based on how many of the statements you agree with.
All right.
So if you agree with like one or none of the statements, they say you're hardly or not at all politically correct. 2 or 3, you're politically correct, but not so much.
Okay.
4 or 5, you're a supporter of political correctness.
Okay.
And then if you agree with all 6, you are the epitome of political correctness.
Wow. So there are levels to this.
Apparently, yeah, like it's a whole ranking system.
It's like a spiritual hierarchy of political correctness.
Right. But the interesting thing is that they go beyond just like labeling you.
Okay.
They actually try to explain like the psychology behind your answers.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So for example, remember that first statement about excessive candor can become harmful.
Yeah.
They say that people who disagree with that statement might be afraid of knowing the truth.
Yeah, interesting.
Like, they prefer to live in a world where everything is sugar-coated.
So basically, they're saying that sometimes we choose diplomacy not out of kindness,
Right.
but out of a desire to protect our own, like, comfort zones.
Exactly. Like, we don't want to rock the boat or face any uncomfortable truths.
It's definitely something to think about.
Get it?
Okay, what about the statement about admiring politicians' speech?
Oh, yeah, that one's a good one.
What do they say about that?
Well, they say that people who agree with that statement might be putting too much emphasis on form over substance. Like, they're easily swayed by a smooth talker, even if the person isn't actually saying anything of substance.
Yeah, like we get caught up in the eloquence and we forget to actually listen to the message.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder if we do that in other areas of life, too.
Oh, good point.
Like, do we prioritize appearances over substance in our relationships or our careers?
Yeah, or even like in our own self-image.
Right. Like, are we more focused on how we appear to others than on who we actually are on the inside?
That's deep.
It is.
Okay, what about the statement about an innocent lie being better than an offensive truth?
Oh, that's a big one.
I know, right? What do they say about that?
Well, they say that this kind of thinking can lead to shallow and poorly aware individuals.
So basically they're saying that even though we might think we're protecting people by shielding them from the harsh realities of life,
Right.
we're actually doing them a disservice.
Exactly, because we're not giving them the opportunity to develop resilience and critical thinking skills.
It's like we're babying them instead of letting them grow.
Yeah, and in the long run, that's not going to help them.
Okay, so maybe a little bit of tough love is actually good for us.
Maybe so.
All right, what about this statement about minorities should always be respected and protected?
That one's interesting because it seems pretty straightforward on the surface.
Right, like who's going to disagree with that?
Exactly, but the spiritual Sikh actually uses a pretty controversial example to challenge that idea.
Oh, really? What is it?
They talk about pedophiles.
Whoa, okay, that's definitely a hot button issue.
Yeah, and they argue that minorities are not all the same.
Right.
And that we should examine each group individually and carefully before granting them specific rights or privileges.
So basically they're saying that we shouldn't just blindly apply labels or give special treatment to any group without actually thinking critically about it.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond those simplistic categories.
Yeah, and actually grappling with the complexities of individual circumstances.
Which is not always easy.
It's not. It's definitely a challenge, but I think it's an important one.
I agree.
Okay, what about their take on adapting to local customs and ideas?
Well, they say that people who are quick to conform might actually have a weak personality.
Interesting.
Like, they lack strong personal convictions, and they're easily swayed by the opinions of others.
So basically they're saying that true strength of character lies in staying true to your own values.
Exactly, even when you're in a different environment or surrounded by people who have different beliefs.
It makes you think about that balance between respecting other cultures and staying true to yourself.
Yeah, like, is it possible to do both?
Right. Can you fully immerse yourself in another culture without losing a part of your own identity?
It's a tough question.
It is. And there's probably no easy answer.
Probably not.
Okay. And finally, what about the statement about avoiding expressing unpopular opinions?
Yes. The fear of social consequences.
That's a big one these days.
It is, and the spiritual Sikh argues that this kind of self-censorship can lead to people presenting an untruthful self-image to the world.
So we're basically hiding our true selves in order to fit in.
Exactly, and that can create a lot of internal conflict.
Because we're not being authentic.
Right, and it can also prevent us from having those important, difficult conversations that need to happen.
Yeah, because if we're all too afraid to speak our minds, then nothing's ever going to change.
Exactly.
Well, this deep dive has been quite a journey.
It has. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. We started with those 6 simple statements from Spiritual Sikh's personality test.
Right.
And we ended up talking about everything from political correctness to personal identity to the balance between individual expression and social harmony.
It just goes to show that even the simplest things can spark really deep and meaningful conversations.
And the Spiritual Sikh has definitely given us a lot to think about.
They've challenged us to question our assumptions and to look at the world from different perspectives.
And ultimately, I think that's what it's all about.
It is.
It's about expanding our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
And being open to new ideas.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of political correctness.
It's been a pleasure.
And remember, there's no right or wrong answer to these questions. It's all about the journey of self-discovery.
And the ongoing quest for understanding.
Until next time, Keep diving deep and stay curious.